A century after the light, a boy with no rank swallowed a star. They call him the Sand Sovereign now. They whisper his name in the mining shafts, in the black markets, in the fortified towers of Neo Sol. But that is not yet true. Not this morning. This morning he is just a corpse with a pulse, sweating in the gut of a sandworm. The desert outside Neo Sol breathes heat in waves that warp metal. The slum rats call it the Hunger Belt. Beyond the outer walls, the dunes are a graveyard of buried cities, old soul, concrete teeth jutting through the sand like a fossilized scream. Zeon knows every broken alley, every shadow where a scavenger can hide. He is 17, maybe 18. He wears a patched tunic, carries a knife made from a sharpened suspension coil, and his eyes are the color of rusted iron. His hands are cracked, his ribs show. He has no mark. In a world where awakened carry insignias, he is a null, a zero in the system. The cartels own the mines, they own the water, they own the hunters who descend into dungeons. Mana stones fuel the world. A stone the size of a fingernail buys a week of clean water. A stone the size of a fist buys a life. Zeon has never held a stone larger than a grain of rice. He is on a dune ridge when the ground ripples. The sand vibrates in a low, subsonic hum that travels up his shins into his teeth. He freezes. The old ones call it the serpent's lullaby. A juvenile sandworm, maybe 40 meters, moving fast. He turns to run, but the sand turns liquid. Then darkness. Hot, wet, pressed. The pressure is unbearable. He understands he is inside the worm, swallowed whole. His left eardrum pops. He screams and tastes acid and meat. Something else struggles against him, half dissolved. The worm's gut walls convulse, grinding him against the half-eaten thing. A rib snaps. Time dissolves. The dark becomes a soundless sea of fire. The pain becomes information. He is drowning, and something inside him whispers. Drink, not a voice, a pressure. He opens his mouth, and the worm's fluid floods his throat. It burns. It tastes like molten copper and rotten stars. His body arches. His chest tears open from the inside. A symbol burns onto his sternum. It is not crimson. It is not cobalt. It is the color of the world's new skin. The mark sinks beneath his flesh. The worm shrieks. It breaches the surface, a 40-meter column of segmented carapace, and it vomits him into the sun. Zeon lands on his back on burning sand. He is drenched in bile, his clothes dissolved, his body a patchwork of chemical burns. He does not move. The worm thrashes, its massive rings rippling. Sand begins to move toward him like a tide, coating his wounds, packing them with cool grains that pulse in sync with his heartbeat. 3 kilometers away, at an outpost watchtower, a bored hunter lowered his binoculars. He keyed his radio with a shaking finger. "You're not going to believe this," he said, "but a Null just killed a D-rank sandworm, without a weapon, and the sand is obeying him." The radio chatter that followed exploded across 6 channels. In a private lounge on the 90th floor of the Neo Sol Spire, a cartel boss named Klexi paused a business meeting. His assistant whispered in his ear. Klexi set down his glass of purified water. His face showed nothing. "Find him," he said, "before the others do." His A-rank insignia pulsed slowly beneath his collar. Zeon woke 3 hours later in a crater of vitrified sand. He sat up. His body felt wrong. Light. The broken rib was no longer broken. The burns were gone. His skin had a faint, dusty shimmer like mica, and the sand moved when he thought about it. A small tendril rose from the ground and curled around his finger. A shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw an old man silhouetted against the sun. The old man wore a frayed traveler's coat and carried a long sword slung across his back. The sword's hilt was wrapped in worn leather, and its pommel looked like a stub of blue crayon. The old man's face was a cliff. "You're the inkless brat who melted a D-rank worm with sand," the old man said. "Good. You'll do. Get up." Zeon stared. "Who are you?" "I'm the man who's going to train you. The world's first and only sand manipulator. Everyone you've ever feared is about to hunt you. My name is Diodin." The sword on his back spoke. "He's got a lot of attitude for a walking chemical burn." Zeon's eyes widened. The blade's voice was like metal scraping honey, sharp and sweet and completely insane. Diodin sighed. "That's Crayon. He's a relic-class weapon with a lifetime subscription to sarcasm. You'll get used to it." Zeon filed it under things that will kill me later, a list he had kept since he was 6. The list now had 3 names. Klexi, who had shot his older brother. Manhwa, the S-rank mining director who used children as trap triggers. And the old man who stood before him offering training while his sword cracked jokes. He stood up. Diodin took him to a place called the Rust Canyons, a labyrinth of crowded skyscrapers and collapsed highways where the sandstorm sang through broken windows. They camped in the hollowed shell of an old department store. Training began at dawn. It did not end until Zeon was convinced organs were trying to leave his body by the shortest possible route. The first day, Diodin made him run through a sandstorm carrying a boulder shaped like a lung. You have a new mana core, the old man said. The worm's digestive mana catalyzed your awakening. Your insignia is orange, sand-colored. You're a glitch, boy. A beautiful, terrifying glitch. But your body is still trash. Flushing it meant ingesting a sand angler's gallbladder. The sand angler was a C-rank monster, a flat-spiked horror that ambushed prey with paralytic barbs. Diodin killed one while Crayon sang a song about severed arteries. He tossed the gallbladder, a bloated green-veined sack, at Zeon. Eat it. Chew or swallow whole. Your choice. He ate. The gallbladder burst between his teeth. The taste was brine and ozone, and the memory of fear. The paralytic hit. His diaphragm locked. Then the mana hit, a torrent of raw energy flooding his veins. He vomited black sludge. His eyes bled. His skin wept gray fluid. When it was over, his mana capacity had tripled. The second week, Diodin taught him shaping. Sand manipulation was about vibration. Zeon learned to raise walls to form spikes, to create currents that swallowed a training dummy. He learned that the finer the grain, the sharper the edge. He learned that sand, when compressed under the pressure of a full mana core, could cut steel. Fixing it meant the wolf ant nest. Deep beneath the rust canyons, an abandoned subway tunnel had become a breeding ground for B-rank wolf ants, chitin-armored insects the size of motorcycles. At the nest's heart, a queen laid eggs that radiated pure liquid mana. Eating a single egg would kill any hunter below B rank. Zeon descended into the nest alone. The first wolfant lunged. Zeon sidestepped and closed the sand around its head, crushing its sensory antennae, then drove a compressed spear of glass through its eye socket. He moved fast, low to the ground, using the dark like he'd used the slum alleys. He was a rat. Rats survived. By the time he reached the queen's chamber, he had killed 14 wolf ants. His arm was broken. His ribs were cracked. He didn't fight the drones. He collapsed the ceiling. 100 tons of sand and ferroconcrete poured down. He crawled through the dust, reached into the queen's ruptured abdomen, and pulled out a cluster of eggs. He ate them, all of them. The organ inversion began immediately. His mana core expanded and contracted in violent spasms. Every organ in his body inverted its polarity. His heart squeezed inward, his lungs flattened, his kidneys twisted, his intestines knotted. He screamed into the dark for an hour. The wolf ant nest trembled with his agony. When Zeon crawled out 3 days later, he was no longer F rank. His mana capacity had quadrupled. His skin had hardened with a subtle granular texture, armor at the cellular level. He could feel every grain of sand within 100 meters as an extension of his nerves. Diodin tossed him a canteen. You're D rank now. The night before the hunt, they sat around a fire of dried brush. Diodin spoke for the first time about his past. I was a cartel executioner. S rank, red insignia, the strongest blade in Neo Soul. 40 years ago, the director Manhwa ordered me to eliminate a family of scientists. That family included your father, your mother, and your sister. I killed them, Diodin said. I killed them all. Except you. When I found out, I broke my contract. I destroyed the cartel's eastern outpost, slaughtered 17 hunters, and vanished into the desert. I've been looking for you ever since. To train you, to arm you, to let you kill me when the time is right. A few days later, the cartel found them. Klexi's hunters, 12 of them, cornered Zeon and Diodin in a canyon. The squad leader was a woman named Hyera, with a lightning insignia and a smile that curved like a sickle. Diodin drew crayon. The blue blade sang with a high luminous note. Stay back, watch and learn. Diodin moved like water poured into a river, inevitable, seamless. Crayon's edge cleaved through combat red shields as if they were paper. The first 3 hunters died before they registered he had moved. He closed the distance, removed Hyera's hand at the wrist, then her head. Crayon hummed a funeral dirge. 11 hunters dead in under 4 minutes. 3 days later, Manhwa himself arrived. He stood 7 feet tall, wrapped in exoskeletal armor forged from dungeon boss chitin, his face a mask of calm avarice. The fight happened in the open desert under a sky the color of bleached bone. Zeon stood a kilometer away on a dune ridge. If I fall, you run. They clashed. The shockwave flattened a square kilometer of dunes. Manhwa threw mountains of force. Diodin cut through them with slashes that left afterimages. The sky darkened as sand swirled into a cyclone. For 5 minutes, the 2 S ranks were evenly matched. Then Manhwa used graviton collapse. A sphere of impossible weight crushed Diodin into the ground. Zeon moved. Forward. The sand obeyed. A tidal wave of compressed grains lifted him and hurled him into the fight. He formed a dozen spears that hit Manhwa and stopped. Manhwa turned his head. A localized gravity, well-seized Zeon, pinned him to the sand, crushed the air from his lungs. He was a bug. Then Diodin spoke. Crayon. Release final seal. The blue of the blade turned white. The sand in a kilometer radius turned to glass. The technique was called Last Page. Manhwa's graviton collapse shattered. The field inverted. All the force came crashing back on him. His armor cracked. Diodin lunged. A single thrust through the center of Manhwa's chest. Manhwa fell. Diodin, impaled by his own broken ribs, collapsed next to the corpse. Zeon crawled through the cooling glass and reached the old man. "You said I wasn't ready. I said you weren't ready for S rank. I was S rank. Now I'm a dead man. Keep the sword. He's annoying, but he's yours." Diodin smiled. Blood on his teeth. "Told you I'd let you choose. You didn't kill me. I died anyway. Maybe that's better. Your sister's name was Hana. She liked marigolds. I killed her. I'll apologize to her now." His eyes emptied. Crayon went silent. Zeon sat in the glass crater for an hour. He picked up the sheathed sword, the blue crayon-like pummel in his hand. He began walking toward Neo-Sol. The sand rose behind him like a cloak, a mantle, a crown. The hunter's drones captured the image and broadcast it to every channel. The chat logs went insane. "Is that a Null? Rip Diodin." In Neo-Sol, Clexi watched the footage in his private office. 1 billion mana stones for the Sandboy's head, alive if possible, and summoned the Hollow Covenant. From under the dunes, deep in the planet's crust, something older than the cartels, older than the light, stirred at the taste of orange mana. Finally. The vessel awakens. Zeon stopped. The sand around him shivered. He felt the presence like a pressure behind his eyes. "Did you hear that?" The sword was quiet, a long moment. "Yeah, that's the thing that made this world a sandbox." Zeon understood his journey was no longer about revenge. It was about sovereignty. The walk to Neo-Sol took 4 days. On the 4th day, he saw the walls of Neo-Sol. They rose 200 meters, fused from mana-reinforced concrete and salvaged steel. At the eastern gate, scavengers and hunters queued for entry. Zeon pulled a hood over his face. The gate guard scanned him with a mana prism. The prism flickered. Blank. Another null. Inside, Neo-Sol was a vertical slum. The lower 100 floors were a labyrinth of walkways, market stalls, and factory lines processing mana stones. The air smelled of sweat, ozone, and roasting meat. He found Minna in a hidden basement cantina. She dropped her tray of vials. "You're dead. I saw the footage. I need a place to sleep and information on Clexi's black market dungeon routes." Mina pulled up a holographic schematic. Clexi moved his operation beneath the Sunken Fist headquarters. He's holding a major auction in 5 days. Security will be insane. "Good. I need an invitation. You can't just walk in." "I won't walk. I'll burrow." That night, Zeon underwent the 3rd organ inversion. He found a crystallized tear of a stone basilisk, a black opal sold on the black market. The crystal dissolved on his tongue and hit his mana core like a neutron star. For 3 hours, he experienced every grain of sand within a kilometer as an extension of his consciousness. A new ability manifested, Sand Echo. He could leave behind a solid clone made of compacted sand replicating his movements for 10 seconds. He was now solidly B rank. The days before the auction, Zeon became a ghost. At night, he killed Clexi slave drivers, leaving their bodies fused with sand. Whispers spread, the Sand Reaper. On the morning of the auction, Zeon visited his brother's grave. It was a small stone marker in a communal pit outside the walls. He poured sand over it and shaped it into a single marigold. The Sunken Fist headquarters was a ziggurat of black glass and steel. He went through the foundation. The eruption was a geyser of golden sand that shattered the marble and launched security guards through the air. Clexi rose slowly, his A-rank insignia blazing. "The rat returns. I was hoping you'd be foolish enough to come." Zeon stood in the center, sand swirling in a slow tornado. "You killed my family. I've killed a lot of families." A ring of red combat hunters dropped from the ceiling. Zeon activated Sand Echo. 2 clones lunged in opposite directions while the real Zeon sank into the floor. He emerged behind Clexi, crayon drawn. Clexi spun and parried with a mana claw. Sand coiled around Clexi's ankles, yanking him down. The floor turned to quicksand. The sand in the room began to hum. Every pane of glass shattered at once. Zeon created a sand vacuum sphere around Clexi, stripping the air from his lungs. Crayon spoke in his mind, "Now." The throat. Zeon thrust. The blue blade punched through the flickering shield through the trachea. Clexi dropped to his knees, gurgling. Zeon withdrew the blade. Clexi fell. The hall erupted into pandemonium. Zeon melted into the sand and vanished. 2 nights later, on a rooftop overlooking the city, he sat with Crayon across his knees. Mina had sent a coded message. The Hollow Covenant was not a myth. They had been waiting for a sovereign to rise from the sand. The next morning, Zeon went to the Scavengers Exchange. A woman with a prosthetic arm and a map tattooed on her scalp caught his attention. "You're the Sandwalker. I'm Resh. I map the unmappable. You want something. I want to go below the dungeons, to where the light came from. The Abyssal Scar. I'll take you." 3 days later, a party of 5 departed. Zeon Resh, Goro a tank, Lyra silent water mage, and Pax a lanky scout. The descent into the Abyssal Scar took 2 days. The walls glowed with phosphorescent fungi. On the 3rd day, deep enough that the sun was a distant myth, they reached the first cyst. In the center of the cavity, a Drakeling waited. Serpentine, 50 meters long, covered in obsidian scales with 6 eyes that all opened. Zeon pressed both palms to the stone. He summoned every grain of silica from beneath the creature and tore it upward. The floor erupted into a storm of grinding glass. The beast howled. Zeon launched himself forward, crayon drawn. The blade found an eye socket. He drove it deep, twisted, and pulled. As the Drakeling died, its heart crystallized into a dragon's remnant, a pale red stone humming with ancient power. Crayon said, "That's the ingredient, organ in version 4. It'll kill a normal man. You're not normal." He swallowed the heart. The 4th inversion annihilated him. For a brief, eternal moment, he was the desert. He felt the weight of a planet's worth of sand pressing on his consciousness. His insignia flared orange and became visible as a burning solar symbol on his chest. His mana capacity breached the S-rank threshold. The burst of power did not go unnoticed. In a hollow volcano far away, 3 white-cloaked figures around a black pool saw the ripple. The tallest spoke. "He has unlocked the 4th seal. Send the whisper. Bind him now, or the surface will burn again." A figure of liquid shadow stepped through a doorway in the pool. The party retreated upward. The whisper rose through the stone, intercepting them in a narrow tunnel. It tilted its head. "Zeon, son of Nomark, bearer of the orange. The Covenant claims you. Surrender your mana or perish." Zeon attacked. Sand condensed into a single spear and launched. The shadow allowed it to pass through. The whisper began to vibrate. It was about to speak Zeon's true name. Crayon screamed, "It's using the old tongue. Interrupt it." Zeon filled the entire tunnel with sand and compressed it. The pressure was so immense that the air turned to plasma. The whisper's form was trapped in a lattice of solidifying silica. "You said a word cannot be buried. I just invented a new word."
Silence.
He shattered the glass. The whisper dissolved into harmless black mist. They reached the surface at dawn. Zeon walked alone into the dunes, crayon quiet on his back. A message vibrated through the sand from Minna. "Covenant envoy approaching. Come." Zeon found Mina in an abandoned water treatment plant. Beside her stood a man in a stained white coat, early 50s, with burn scars on his neck. "This is Joran. He was a Covenant researcher. He defected 3 weeks ago. He knows their structure, their language, and what they want with you." Joran spoke with the cadence of decades. The Covenant fired a beam of solar mana at Earth's major population centers a century ago. The plan was always to find a vessel, a human who could fuse with the planetary core. You are the only person in a century who can hear it. They've been harvesting children for decades. You're the first natural one. They will never stop. There's a breach in the Abyssal Scar. At the bottom, the planet's mana heart is exposed. The Covenant built a city around it called the White Spindle. It's guarded by whispers, sentinels, machines that can erase mana signatures. You could never breach it alone. I'm not alone. Draw me a map. He descended the fissure on a column of sand that drilled downward like a corkscrew. The rock screamed against his control. The heat rose to levels that would have melted a normal body. The White Spindle appeared as a vertical pillar of pale mana that stretched from the core's crystalline casing to a ceiling of fused obsidian. He found the binding chamber, a spherical room with a throne of black crystal connected to the core by living tendrils of liquid mana. Around it stood the Triad, the silver-masked woman, a man whose body was made of interlocking white runes, and a child with eyes of solid dark holding a staff of stolen names. The silver-masked woman spoke. "Join your mind to the core, become the desert's will, end the cycle." Zeon materialized fully, crayon in hand. "You killed my family. I won't sit on your throne. I'm going to break it." The rune-covered man shook his head. "Then you will witness the second light." They attacked. Zeon didn't fight them directly. He fought the throne. He drove crayon into the crystal base, channeling every ounce of his S-rank mana through the blade. The throne cracked. The chains could not hold him. He twisted the blade, and the crystal base shattered. The tendrils snapped. The White Spindle shuddered. The Triad retreated through a portal of negative light. This is not over. The desert will remember. Zeon rode a tide of sand up out of the abyss into the night air. The sunken scar caved in behind him. He lay on the sand breathing. Crayon's voice was barely a whisper. "You broke their throne." Diodin would have laughed. A message vibrated through the sand from Mina. "The auction network is burning. Cartels are fighting each other. The Undercity is rising. What did you do?" He sent back. Started a new list. When he walked through Neo Soul's eastern gate, the guard scanner stayed dark. Someone had smashed it. Fires bloomed in the upper sector. An old woman missing an arm pressed a piece of baked manna bread into his hand. My son worked Manho's cages. You killed Manho. You killed Klexi. Eat. He ate. It tasted like hope, but with a gritty texture. Minna found him in her clinic, now overflowing with patience. The cartel power structure was shattered. A delegation of guild hunters arrived. They wanted to see his insignia. He focused. For the first time, he willed the mark to show itself. The insignia that appeared was no longer just a mark. It was a sigil, a stylized dune curling around a rising sun, and at its center, a single grain that contained an entire galaxy. That's a sovereign's crest, Jorn whispered. Only one was ever theorized. You're not just a sand user, you're the sand, the living avatar of the new planetary element. The guild hunters arrived an hour later. A tall B-rank woman with a lightning insignia named Iska stepped forward. We've seen the footage. We need guidance. The next morning, Zeon addressed the council. The Covenant will try again. They have more spindles. They have machines that can erase a city. I'm going to hunt them all and break every last throne. Iska stepped forward. The Lightning Guild will send a ship and 20 hunters. The foundation of the Sand Fleet was laid. 3 weeks later, the Hana was ready. A sand schooner that rode the dunes on a cushion of compressed air, propelled by mana engines and wind sails. Its hull was reinforced with fused glass and basilisk scale laminate. At its bow, a crystal spike that resonated with Zeon's orange frequency. The marigold symbol was etched on its hull. The Hana launched at midday, sliding out of Neo-Sol's southern gate into the vast shimmering emptiness. Zeon stood at the bow, guiding the ship toward the sunken spire of old Los Angeles. Crayon hanging in a custom rack on the mast said, I've been on many journeys. This one smells like victory and extremely poor life choices. Ahead, the sand rose into a mirage of ruined skyscrapers, the edge of the old coast. Somewhere beneath them, a white spindle pulsed. The sunken spire rose from the dunes like a broken spine. It had once been a corporate tower in downtown San Angeles, now canted 30 degrees, its glass long melted into abstract sculptures of frozen sand. They know we're here, Iska said. Then we don't sneak. We knock. Goro's explosion was beautiful, sending a pillar of orange-green light into the sky. The Covenant sentinels surfaced like metallic locusts. Zeon slipped past them as sand. The throne was guarded by a single whisper, larger than the one he'd killed. This one had a face. The vessel returns. The vessel destroys. You are not the savior. You are the ender. When all thrones fall, the core will wake and devour all life. This is the truth they hid from you. Zeon paused. The core's groaning presence was not benign. It was deeply furious. He placed his hand on the throne and asked, What are you? The core showed him images. An old world, green and blue, woven with life. Then a searing light, pain beyond scale, millennia of slow bleeding, a patient, burning hatred, and then a tiny grain of hope. A child born in the desert. That child was Zeon. The core had whispered to him in the worm's belly. The core offered a third option. Merge with me willingly. Share the burden. Become the mind that tempers the rage. But you will no longer be just Zeon. You will be the desert's consciousness. He broke the throne anyway, not in acceptance, not in rejection, but because he refused to accept the choices given to him. The secondary spindle shattered. The tower above collapsed in a cloud of white dust. Zeon escaped through the sand, dragging his crew's extraction line. The Hana fled south as the bastion caved in. From the rear deck, Zeon felt the core's pulse shift, more awake. Soon. You will understand soon. Days passed. The Hana crossed the remnants of the Baja Peninsula, a maze of salt flats and petrified forests. Zeon, trained in secret, testing the limits of his power. He could now hear the sand's memory. He glimpsed the day the light fell from the core's perspective and saw the silver-masked woman, unchanged, older than she appeared. Jorn's map indicated the origin spindle in the Pacific Basin, now a desert so deep it was called the Sea of Glass. There he would make the final choice. The crew debated, but in the end they all stayed. Iska summed it up. You didn't ask to be the sovereign, but you are. And we've come this far. We'll see it through. As the Hana sailed into the Sea of Glass, the sand beneath the hull turned translucent, then clear as crystal. The ship seemed to fly over a frozen ocean of light. Below them, visible through kilometers of silica, something massive stirred. The core's heart, the first spindle, inverted, buried as a cage of mirrors reflecting infinite rage. Standing on a ridge of crystal glass, waiting, were the Triad. All three. With them, a fourth figure, a robed man holding a staff that was a key, a lever, a detonator for the second light. The Silver Woman raised a hand. Welcome to the place where your story was written before you were born. Zeon stepped off the Hana, crayon in hand, his sigil blazing. Behind him, the crew stood ready. Ahead, the Covenant's heart and the planet's fury. The sun caught the glass plane and turned the world into a mirror, reflecting infinite versions of himself, every choice, every path, every possible ending. He walked forward without hesitation.
We've reached the end of part 1. If you made it this far and enjoyed the story, go ahead and leave your like to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe so we can reach our goal of the first 1,000 subscribers. Comment part 2 below so I can bring you the continuation. If we get more than 10 comments, I'll release the next part for you all. See you in the next video.